Agency, brokerage, and ethical considerations. In this chapter, another long chapter, you're going to identify types of agency and fiduciary responsibilities. Describe the broker-salesperson relationship and compensation issues. Discuss the disclosures to sellers and buyers relating to creating agency and providing material information. Learning what material information is. Describe misrepresentation, Consumer Fraud Act, the antitrust laws, ethical considerations, and disciplinary offenses as forms of consumer protections. So we're going to start out with brokerage defined. What is brokerage? Brokerage is the business of bringing buyers and sellers and landlords and tenants together. In exchange, we may receive compensation for the services. Brokers are licensed to assist others in real estate transactions, and salespeople are representatives of the broker and can be paid through only your brokers, right? Who can pay you a commission? Only your brokers.
Only broker.
Right? You could only be paid by your broker. No other brokers, just your broker. Okay. So I put together a slide here, the brokerage roles, so that we know who the players are and what some of these common terms and terminology is that we use. So I put together this little guide for you here of the brokerage roles of those players. So let's just hammer down through it really quick. Some of this stuff is pretty obvious, but salesperson is a real estate licensee who works under a broker. Principal is the person we're working with. It is our client. An agent is a licensee who owes fiduciary duties to clients. Subagent is an agent of an agent, both representing the same client, but only one of them hired directly from that client. A buyer's agent only represents the buyer. A seller's agent only represents the seller.
So agent and salesperson.
Yeah.
It's the same.
No, because you could be working as a transaction broker.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, a salesperson is a license type. Now, how is that licensee going to work? Are they going to be working as a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, a disclosed dual agent, a designated agent, or a transaction broker? You could work in any of those capacities, right?
Okay.
So, disclosed dual agent, the agency represents both parties in the transaction and can't place one party's interest above the other. So that could be you as an individual. You could be working with both the seller and the buyer in the transaction, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It could be that you're representing one party in a transaction, another agent in your office is representing someone else, but the company is still representing both parties in the transaction. So it would still be dual agency. Now, we know undisclosed dual agency is illegal. Disclosed dual agency is perfectly fine. Now, we have this new type of agency, which is the designated agent, right? The designated agency, where a designated agent represents only the buyer or seller as assigned by their broker. However, the brokerage has two agents, one working with the buyer, the other with the seller, and owes all the same fiduciary duties as the buyer or sellers only agent would. Let me add in here. The broker designating the agents would be a dual agent. The broker would still be a dual agent because they are overseeing everybody and they have access to all the documents, right? A transaction broker is a manager of a transaction without representing the principal in an agency capacity as their agent, and therefore does not owe fiduciary duties like an agent would. That's why we call them transaction broker. The word agent's not there. Their principal is called a customer, not a client. Because we owe clients fiduciary duties. We owe customers fair and honest dealing only. Commission is the compensation paid for the work performed. A client is anyone we're representing as their agent and owed fiduciary duties. A customer is anyone we do not have an agency relationship with and are not representing them as a buyer's agent, seller's agent, disclosed dual agent, or as a designated agent. However, we still need to treat them fairly and honestly. We don't owe fiduciary duties to customers, only to clients.
I had a question like, what is an example of a transaction broker like?
It's somebody who's acting, who's managing the transaction, but not acting as a buyer's agent, seller's agent, or disclosed dual agent, and you're working with somebody in the transaction. You're the manager of the transaction doing all the things that an agent would, except the difference lies in the legal obligations you have to the person that you're working with. That's the only difference, a checkbox. Did I check off that I'm going to work with you as a buyer's agent only, a seller's agent only, a disclosed dual agent, or a transaction broker, or a designated agent? Sorry, forgot that one. So transaction brokers do not owe fiduciary duties. Okay, it's the only difference is a check box on a form. Your brokerage.
We also get the commission.
Yeah, but you have to state what you're doing in exchange for the money you're earning. And you do that in your brokerage service agreement, which we're all required to have now. When working with buyers, sellers, landlords, or tenants. All right. So let's do some highlights here in the book, which doesn't cover this stuff as clearly, but a client is whom specific duties are owed. Customer is whom the agent was required to treat fairly and honestly. And then I wrote in here, we do not owe customers fiduciary duties owed to clients. And the creation of agency is determined not by who pays the commission, but by an actual contractual agreement between the broker, the buyer, seller, landlord, or tenant. It's also possible to function, for a licensee to function as a transaction broker, working with the buyer, seller, or both, without representing anyone. You're functioning as a manager of the transaction, just doing the duties, but you do not have an agency relationship where you have a legal obligation to do something for someone. You just need to treat them fairly and honestly. So transaction brokers should have a written contract, like the brokerage service agreement, that explains exactly what they're doing in exchange for the fee that they are charging. So these brokerage service agreements are new. In the past, they were,
For which kinds of license has the transaction broker?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Which kinds of license has transaction broker? They have also salesperson license?
Okay, you guys are getting confused here. It doesn't matter what your license type is. If you have a real estate license, other than a referral agent, because a referral agent cannot work directly with the public.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what kind of license you have. You could work as a buyer's agent only, seller's agent only, disclosed dual agent, designated agent, or a transaction broker. So what's the difference between all the ones that end in the word agent versus transaction broker? Agents, fiduciary duties, certain legal responsibilities, which we're going to learn about in this chapter. So we owe certain legal responsibilities to our clients. Transaction brokers, licensees who work as transaction brokers, don't have those legal responsibilities. The people they work with are called customers. They just need to treat them fairly and honestly. They can't lie to them and they can't take advantage of them. They got to treat them fairly and honestly. That's all. That's the only difference. Don't focus on license types and things of that. This has nothing to do with that. This has to deal with the types of what do you owe this person you're working with when you're working as a transaction broker versus any of the types of agent.
Yeah. So my question is when saying agent, seller agent, buyer agent, producer agent, 4 type of agents. So agent means they have a license of salesperson. Correct?
Well, transaction broker can be too licensed.
Yeah. Transaction now it's a broker. He's transaction broker. But whenever saying agent,
No.
agent cannot be without license.
Salespeople can be transaction brokers. It has nothing to do with your license type. It has to deal with how you choose to work with the person you're working with. Transaction broker does not mean that that you have a broker's license. It has nothing to do with the license type. It's just a description of the how you're working with somebody and what do you owe them. Agents owe fiduciary duties, legal responsibilities to their clients. Where
you're not getting my question. So my question is right now I know that my neighbor is looking for a home, and if I'm bringing that neighbor to the one of the salesperson, can I get am I an agent? No.
If you have a neighbor that's looking to sell their home and
if I have customer right now, just think about I have one customer. He wants to buy a home. And I don't have any license. Can I get commission?
Let's turn to page 1 in the book, chapter 1. Read to me the first sentence. Page 1, chapter 1. Anyone who takes part in a real estate transaction in New Jersey for another person for a fee, commission, or other valuable consideration must have a real estate license.
Got it. Yeah, that was my understanding. That was my understanding. So without any license, you cannot be an agent. So any agent, we have seller agent, buyer agent, transaction brokers must have a license. Without license, you cannot.
Agents, transaction brokers, property managers, it doesn't matter how you're working, you need to be licensed when helping somebody in a real estate transaction in exchange for a fee, commission, or anything of value.
Got it. You got it. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. Okie doke.
So wherever you have a star, that is like an exam question.
No, this is just explaining to you that it's also possible for licensees to function as transaction brokers, working with buyers or sellers or both, just like you do when you're working as an agent. The only difference is, no agency relationship is created because you're not working in the capacity of an agent. You're working as a manager of the transaction when you work as a transaction broker. So if you're not working in the capacity of a agent, like buyer's agent, seller's agent, disclosed dual agent, etc., you only owe fair and honest dealing to the person you're working with. You don't owe them fiduciary legal responsibilities. That's all this is. I just got this to explain to people. Otherwise, I'd be going through this whole book. Oh my God, which things do we need to point out to you? It's just a little guide for me to things to explain to you that are kind of important. Then I made a little note down here to further explain. Transaction brokers should have a written contract, the brokerage service agreement that explains what they're doing in exchange for the fee that is charged. Okay. So everybody's got this?
Yeah, highlight done.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna have a couple more slides on this because I know sometimes people get confused, and that's usually when you start overthinking things. You could be your own worst enemy when it comes to these exams. What is my method that I like the best? The KISS concept, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Do not overthink things, because you could be your own worst enemy when it comes to this. Some of this stuff is just as simple as an explanation. Okay, so I know we try to frame things in, okay, well, how does that work in the real world? And, in here, it is just a matter of something that's on paper. It's not in the real world. It's in the real world, you're showing buyers properties and you're taking listings and you're advertising them and marketing them. Okay, you could do that and be working as a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, a dual agent, a designated agent, or a transaction broker. The difference lies in the legal responsibilities you may or may not owe to someone. That's it. Now, the person you're working with, what do you call them? Well, it depends. How are you working with them? Are you working as one of the types of agents? If that's the case, they're your client. If you're working with them as a transaction broker, or you're not working with them at all yet, you're trying to get them as a client, then they're a customer to you. So you just need to treat customers fairly and honestly, right? I don't represent you. I don't owe you legal responsibilities at this point because you're just a customer. You're not working with me yet. You're a potential client, right? So a client is someone a licensee is representing as their agent and owes fiduciary duties, legal obligations we owe to clients. Who is considered a client? Anyone the licensee is working with as a buyer's agent, seller's agent, disclosed dual agent, or designated agent. Customer is someone the licensee is working with as a transaction broker, not as their agent. Or they could be another agent's client. Who are they to us? They're a customer. We still need to treat them fairly and honestly, but we don't owe another agent's client fiduciary duties, right? So we can't lie to them. We only owe them fair and honest dealing. That's it. We do not owe fiduciary duties to customers. So what is a fiduciary duty, which I keep saying over and over again? Fiduciary duties are legal responsibilities we owe to clients. If violated, we could be held legally and financially liable to our clients. So therein lies this simple explanation, which I tell you, do not overthink the difference between a client and a customer. So the role of a broker as an agent of the principal is a fiduciary relationship, which falls within the requirements of the laws of agency. We owe fiduciary duties to our clients when we work as an agent. Once again, all the different agent types spelled out here, but not when we work as a transaction broker. So, what is a fiduciary relationship? An actual definition for it. Here's the definition in the book, which they have improved over the years. I think somebody that worked for me gave a definition over there for the class, the definitions that we always use here in class. So their definition got better, still not perfect, but better. So a fiduciary relationship is based on trust and confidence in which an agent is responsible for the money and or property of others. It requires putting the client's interest above all others, including your own interest and your broker's interest. So if you come to, let me give you an example. You already had the inspections, you're under contract, you already had inspections, we're getting ready for closing now. And then you find out about a problem with the house that the inspector didn't catch and nobody else did, but you found out somehow about a problem with the house. Do you keep it to yourself so that you could just close on time and get paid? Or do you disclose it to your client?
Support to disclose.
And it could possibly delay the closing in this transaction or maybe even cause a killing of the deal. You
should disclose to the customer.
You have to.
Sorry, to the client.
Yes, because you got to put your client's interest above all others, including your own and your broker's own, which would be to get paid. You know, so it's interesting when these attorneys on the opinion 26 notice, if you remember, they put in there, yeah, the agent's interest is to close because they don't get paid unless they close. But yet we have legal responsibilities to them, just like attorneys do to their clients. You know, they have fiduciary duties to their clients, so do we, you know. And if we violate them, we could get sued. We could have financial and legal consequences if we violate them. So some real estate agents choose not to work as agents. They work as transaction brokers because they want to avoid any of that liability. But me, I like to represent my clients' interests. I represent those who work with me. Okay? So I just don't violate my fiduciary duties to them. Simple as that. You're good to go. Alrighty.
Yeah, highlighted.
Everybody got it highlighted? Okay, great. Let's see. So we can also highlight this here, and then we're going to go on to the next slide, which will explain this stuff better. What you're writing here. You're going to make these highlights, but also write the notes here that I have written. And on the next slide, I'll go over the explanations.
So like the fiduciary duties also include like your moral duties, like your conscience, like that you should always do the correct thing. Everything.
Yeah, I guess it could. But you know, you could do things unethical that are not illegal.
Yeah, but this is not only concerned just to legal paperwork, it's also other things.
You have to look out for your client's best interest.
Yeah, overall, everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Like in the way you put yourself as a client, and if you're buying that home, how would you like to be?
If this was my mother, would I do this to her?
Yeah, right.
I always, you know, try to position it like that, you know?
Yeah.
And let's just say that you love your mother and there's no drama. We always got a wise ass in class, you know. We just put that out there.
Yeah, Aladdin.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. So we're going to talk about types of agents in a little different way now when it pertains to things like a power of attorney. Have you guys ever heard of the term power of attorney before?
Yes.
Yep.
A power of attorney, I put a definition the best I could here. A power of attorney is a document that grants someone the authority to legally act on someone else's behalf. As if we were standing in the room signing the documents ourselves. The person given that authority to act on our behalf is acting as our agent in the eyes of the law. This person is referred to as an attorney in fact. And they must operate according to the limits within the scope of their authority that was granted to them in the power of attorney. What the hell does that mean? That means that if you give somebody a power of attorney, on this document, you're defining the scope of their authority on matters that they can act on your behalf in. You know, you're not giving them an unlimited power of attorney to act on your behalf on all matters. They could take out car loans or buy a house or sell a house or a car, open bank accounts or close my bank account, or you're not giving them an unlimited authority. You're going to try to limit the scope of the authority that you're granting them on how they could act on your behalf when you're not there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a universal agent is somebody who has an unlimited power of attorney. They can act on your behalf on all matters. And that's just crazy. Who's going to do that? You know, not unless you're like putting together like a living trust or something where in case you're brain dead, you got a family member, you know, that's going to have an unlimited power of attorney to act on your behalf on all matters, you know. Real estate agents usually work in one of two ways. We work either as general agents or special agents. So a general agent is usually a property manager. So general agent, property managers usually work as general agents that can legally bind their clients to a contract within the scope of their limited authority that was granted to them by the property owner, as they defined in the property management agreement. That property management agreement is their limited power of attorney. It says how they could act on the property owner's behalf for the property we're managing. They may have granted us the authority to, if there's a vacancy, to seek out a ready, willing, and able renter. And then what happens once we find one? Do we get to select them and sign the lease with them, or do we need to give that over to the owner and then the owner signs a lease with them? Did they grant us that authority to act on their behalf in that way? It depends what we wrote in the power of attorney, which is the property management agreement. You guys are all following with me still?
Yep.
So that's all it is in a nutshell. Don't overthink this, you know. Property managers usually work as general agents, and they can legally bind their clients to contracts within the scope of the authority that was granted to them by the property owner. And they do that in a property management agreement, which is essentially their limited power of attorney.
So mainly this is for the rental agreement.
Could be for a lot of issues when managing the property. Like, what about hiring a contractor to maintain or do repairs on the property? You know, it could be for a lot of different things. Did the owner give us the authority to do that for them? Can we hire an outside contractor to do the snow removal, and then that is going to get billed to the owner? Or did the owner grant us that authority to be able to do that? It depends what it says in the property management agreement. Okay. But yes, essentially, that property management agreement is the limited power of attorney that we sign with the owners. Okay. So most agents work as special agents. Most agents are not doing property management. So most agents work as special agents. You're very special. What does that mean? Well, most agents work as special agents, meaning that they can represent their principal in, this is a weird wording they usually use. You could represent your principal in one capacity only. Now, nowhere is it defined what that actually means, one capacity only, but I will explain it to you. It means you can't legally bind your clients to a contract. A lot of people, they read this and they misread it. They read too much into it, where it says special agents can represent their principal in one capacity only. A lot of people start thinking, does that mean I can represent the seller but not the buyer? I can represent one or the other? No. You can represent both parties in the transaction, it doesn't matter. But here's an example spelled out for you. What does one capacity only mean? If you're hired as a buyer's agent, you can help the buyer find a property, but you cannot sign and submit offers on their behalf, legally binding them to the contract. You can prepare the contract, but the buyer needs to sign it. And then you could present it on their behalf. You're not signing your name to the contract and then legally binding the owner or the buyer to this purchase. You can't legally bind people to contracts. Here, an easier one to maybe understand is, as a seller's agent, you could you're hired to market a property to find a ready, willing, and able buyer. But you cannot legally accept offers that come in without discussing them with the seller. You can't be like, okay, we're going to accept that offer because I find it acceptable. And then now the seller is legally bound to that contract. Can't do that. What happens when an offer comes in writing? You need to forward it or present it to the owner within 24 hours. Right? You can't accept it for them. You get the contract and then you forward it or present it to them, and then they decide if they want to accept it. Now, I know you may have seen these $1 million listing agent programs on TV. I remember seeing one episode years ago where the agent, he picks up, they're often these young kids, you know, they're more worried about going out clubbing and partying and showing off their riches and teasing their hair. They're all like based in California or New York City, and looking in the mirror and stuff, and the stuff that they had. And so one of these agents calls up the other young agent, and they're dealing with all these clients that are millionaires, you know. And they're like, yeah, all right, you got the listing of that property on whatever street, right? And he's like, yeah. Is that still available? Yeah, it is. Would your client be willing to entertain an offer? I got a client that he's interested in making an offer for this amount. He's like, hold on, let me check. He puts the phone on mute, and then you see him teasing his hair, you know, some cologne. While he's looking, he gets back on the phone. He's like, yeah, the client counter offers is making a counter offer of whatever. And he never spoke to his client. I don't know if that's just TV or if that's what they're really doing. And if that's what they're really doing, the California or New York licensing authority is not fining them or having legal consequences for that. I don't understand that. In New Jersey, they would. You have to present that offer, even though this is a verbal offer, that came in. You call up your clients and you say, listen, I got a verbal offer here for this amount. What do you want to do? Do you want to accept it or do you want to counter it? And if you want to counter it, how much? I would advise you do this or whatever, and you could have that conversation with your client. And then whatever you agree on, then you could go back to that other agent, be like, yes, they're making a counter offer of this amount. And then you go from there. Now, me personally, I don't like doing that verbal stuff. But when an agent calls me up and they say, yeah, we want to know if your client will entertain an offer, I guess it's a little bit different when you're dealing with multimillionaires and they could throw away money anywhere. So I guess it's not as big as an issue unless we're talking about huge discrepancies in price. But I would usually, for at least your regular average homes and people that are buying, if somebody calls up and they say, yeah, my client wants to make an offer on the property, would they consider this offer? My reply would be exactly this. Make your highest and best offer. Put it in writing. I'll present it to the owner and see what they say. Because a verbal offer is nothing more than fishing. I've had instances before, but in some cultures, negotiation is a way of life with everything. Look at the Indian community, right? That is very common to do negotiations at markets and stuff like that, right? And I've experienced that in real estate, where I have somebody that called and they would say, yeah, would the seller accept, let's say we had that property for $300,000. Would the seller accept $270,000? I said, make your highest best offer, put it in writing. They put it in writing. Okay. So they rejected it and they countered it in writing. And then they called me up and they say, well, they won't accept $270,000. They countered full price again. So will they accept $271,000? What about $272,000? What about $273,000? And it's like, I'm not going to be going back and forth. The guy's like dealing with $1,000 differences here. Will we accept $274,000? It's like, put it in writing. Because if they're not putting it in writing, it's easy for them to just keep going back and forth like that until they find the exact amount where the owner is willing to break and accept. And we don't want to do that. Our job as a seller's agent is to get the most money we can for our clients. The buyer's agent is to try to get it at the lower price. But you don't play these games going back and forth by $100 or $1,000 until we find that sweet spot. Because this guy was doing this. And when he did it, the owner got really angry. And they kept countering full price. And then at one point, they said, you know what? I don't want to entertain any offers from this guy. So I told my client, you got to put that in writing for me. Otherwise, I have to go back and give everyone to you, So my client put it in writing and they gave it to me. And then when the guy called up to make another offer, I said, sorry, I can't accept any more offers from you. The seller does not want to entertain any more offers from you because you're playing this game with them, and they found it insulting, and they just don't want to deal with it. So it could backfire on people sometimes in that way. And when you do make those offers and those negotiations, sometimes people like to renegotiate too. So the offer's accepted, it went to attorney review, it's out of attorney review. You have an opportunity to renegotiate after the home inspections if you find problems. You could say, hey, the seller got to fix this or do that, or we can renegotiate and they could just lower the price by this much. Okay, that's fine. But when somebody, after you're already in a legally binding contract, and there's no reason to change the price because of a problem that needs to get fixed, and we're trying to figure out the value of it and give a credit for that amount. If they're just trying to renegotiate, they're like, no, we're not renegotiating. Well, then we're going to go through with the purchase. Well, that's your prerogative, but you're going to give up all your, you're going to give up your deposit money, and the seller's going to sue you. Those are your options right now. You're in a legally binding contract right now. You need a good legal excuse to get out of it. Without a good legal excuse, you're going to be financially liable to them. You're in breach of contract. Now, I just found that a lot of people they negotiate. It's kind of interesting. It's actually not negotiating at all. It's just going back and forth with the price. Okay, that's not necessarily negotiations per se. Negotiations could include like, well, why would they lower the price? What are you giving them for that? Are you willing to waive an inspection contingency, or are you buying cash and you're willing to waive the mortgage contingency or the appraisal contingency? What are you giving in exchange? It's negotiations is when one of the parties gives something up to the other, but it's in exchange for something, not just back and forth. Well, I don't pay more than this. That's not negotiations. There's actually classes that you guys can take on negotiations too. But it's really interesting how some cultures it's very common and you need to expect it. You need to expect it. So don't take things personal yourself. Your job is being hired by a client to sell a house. Your job is to take the personal aspect out of it. You're the business professional. Somebody's making you an offer. That means that they're interested. While a seller may get offended and such, your job is to stand in between them and try to negotiate because you got a fish on the hook. Your job is to just kind of ease them in and make sure you don't lose that fish on the hook. You know what I'm saying? That's how the sales and the negotiation works. Spent enough time on that. So
Can I just ask a question on this?
Sure.
Does the seller have to give a reason why they're declining the offer?
No.
No?
No,
But then could you say maybe it's discrimination?
you can say whatever you like.
And then
Leave it. Right? Listen, often when people get their offers rejected, the first response is always, they're discriminating against me.
yeah.
And listen, I've been the neutral party on this in between on so many transactions over the years. That's usually the first response somebody has. And I know for a fact that has nothing to do with it, because I know the other offers that came in and what they were. I've even had people that made higher offers than the offer that was accepted.
Yeah.
But the seller accepted this lower offer because they like the cute family and the kids like to see them living in their home and raising their kids and family like they had raised theirs. Or it could have been because there's other terms in the contract, like they were more flexible with the closing date. And the owner knew that they were going to need possibly a little more time to get all their stuff packed up and moved out. And the buyer was more flexible. Even though their price was lower, they were more flexible on that closing date, whereas the one who offered a lot of money was pretty rigid in when it needed to close.
So then back to those fiduciary rights, why isn't the agent telling you, hey, heads up, it's not necessarily the highest offer, it's also your terms. Maybe don't be so firm on, you know what I'm saying? Would that thing, because I'm thinking back to a scenario that I once had that all of a sudden the contract was no, And it was just like, I never even heard that there was another offer. I never even like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, an agent should tell you when there's multiple offers on the transaction. An agent should tell you that there's multiple offers and we're doing highest and best. So make your highest and best offer and put it in writing. Highest does not mean best. Highest and the best offer are two different things. Like,
But what's the best? What makes it the best then?
it could be they're more flexible with the closing date. The
We have
thing-
financial condition. We have financial condition.
Well, the thing is, we cannot disclose the terms of other offers to someone else who's making an offer.
But why wouldn't the agent say, you know, for an example, like let's say you're saying the closing date, and for some reason in the contract, the agent just put in, I don't know what, closing date, and then for someone else, they're like, oh, we're flexible on the closing date, but you didn't even bother mentioning it because like you're like, I'm just putting in an offer over here, you know? Why wouldn't the agent tell you this?
You may want to take it upon yourself to try to foresee that and write that in. If you don't, then it looks like it's rigid, and sometimes the seller may be like, well, check with the other one with the higher offer if they're flexible with the closing date too, like
Right.
they ask it. But
Right.
otherwise, we as real estate agents, we cannot disclose to other people the terms of another offer. The other offer. We could just say there's another offer, and we always get them. They say, "Well, can you give us an idea of how much more we need to be so that you can win out the other guy?" So now we're playing favorites. Real estate agents, we have to treat everybody fairly and honestly, and that's not treating everybody fairly and honestly by disclosing the terms of somebody else's offer. So you gotta write up your offer the right. If you're flexible in the closing date, it's up to you to write that in the contract. If you don't write it, unless the seller asks us to reach out to you to see if you are, we can't.
A couple of more things,
I
like
get it.
if we are giving offer that we will accept as it is. If in the appraisal something wrong found, I still buy it. So seller can choose, okay, I can go for this because he's making the contract in writing. I can accept if anything a small or $5,000 till maintenance came or repair came, I can still accept the. So that can be the seller's choice. Yes, he's accepting these things. Appraisal cannot delay.
Well, is make your highest and best offer, put it in writing. Hopefully, you write it up the right way for any. If you want any contingencies, but so when submitting offers, if you submit them as contingency free as possible, that makes your offer better.
Yeah.
Everything is a
Contingency.
A contingency is a happening in which the contract is dependent upon.
Yes.
A mortgage contingency clause is contingent upon me qualifying for and being able to actually get the loan once I submit all my paperwork to the lender. If I'm unable to get it, then that's a reason for me to get out of the contract, and it's considered to be in breaching contract where you're able to make a claim against my deposit money to keep it now, or to sue me because I didn't go through with the contract. I was unable to. I wanted them. I just couldn't get the mortgage. What do you want me to do? So sometimes we need to have contingencies in them. Let me give you an example. When relatives help with down payments or closing costs or the money to buy a house, this I see pretty often where relatives are helping with the money to buy a house. And sometimes it's distant relatives too. Well, once again, this is something anybody can do, and I've seen this across cultures, but by far I see it more in the Indian community where the Indian families tend to, now, this does not mean that all Indian families do these things, but I by far see it more commonly within the Indian community where Indian families tend to help each other out, like distant cousins and uncles and stuff. They pool money to help you buy a house, and they need to give their approval for it first. So they're going to want to see the house. So what do? Do you just make the offer and then write all these people's names as a contingency on the contract? I would not. The best way to do this is to get all those relatives, set up another showing where you could get all those relatives at the same time to go through the house, check it out, give their approval. You need to put it as a contingency because it's no longer a contingency. Because if you write like, look, as a seller, if I said, we're making an offer in your house, but the offer is contingent upon 10 people giving their approval, would you consider that a strong offer?
No.
No. Yeah. So you want to submit these offers as contingency free as possible. So I would like to get those people through the house. I remember one time I did that. We had 3 carloads of people that we ended up getting through the house, and there was still 2 more people we needed to get, but they were driving down from Canada. We submitted the offer in writing, and I put 2 people's names down because they were helping with the money to buy the house, and but they were driving down from Canada. Like I put that in the contract, yeah, you know. And they accepted the offer, and then as soon as they got here, I met with them. We went out for lunch, and I took them to the house and showed it to them. They liked the house, and then we removed them as contingencies from the contract. So now you want to address them, remove contingencies from a contract as soon as possible. We're talking about this stuff way too early because Chapter 11 is about contracts. So,
Okay. Yes.
you know, we've been really getting sidetracked here. Okay, so special agent. Most agents work as special agents. Agents can work in 2 ways: general agent or special agent. What's the difference between the two? A general agent can legally bind their clients to a contract. Special agents cannot. They could work in one capacity only. If you're hired to sell a property, you're hired by a seller to market the property to find a ready, willing, and able buyer. If you're, and if an offer comes in, then you present it to the owner, and then they accept it or not. You cannot legally accept it on their behalf. If you're a buyer's agent, you're hired by a buyer to help them maybe get financing and walk them through the buying process. But when you eventually, and show them houses, but when you eventually find the house, you can't legally bind them to a contract by writing up a contract and then signing it for them. You could work in one capacity only, helping them find that home. But ultimately, they need to select the home and they need to sign the contract. So that's what one capacity only means. It means that you're hired to show them properties and help them find that property, but you can't legally bind them to it. That's the simplest. You cannot legally bind your client to a contract. That's the simplest definition of what working in one capacity only means. Okay. Let me see if I put that in the notes. Yes, I did. Okay. So what's the difference between a general agent and special agent? Another slide on this. General agent can legally bind their clients to a contract within the scope of their authority as defined in the property management agreement. Special agents, most agents work as special agents. They cannot legally bind their clients to a contract. They must forward or present all offers and have sellers sign them if they wish to accept them within 24 hours. So a special agent works in one capacity only in that regard. Okay. Let me swipe that slide too. The difference. All right. All right, let's learn about your fiduciary duties. What are fiduciary duties? We know that those are the legal responsibilities that you owe to clients. So fiduciary duties are those legal responsibilities that you owe to clients. Specifically, what are those? We have an acronym here to help you remember what your fiduciary duties are. COALD, spelled COALD. C is for care. O is for obedience. A is for accounting. L is for loyalty, which includes confidentiality. Anything your client tells you in confidence, you need to keep your mouth shut about. You don't go telling anybody else, like if they're willing to accept a lower price or pay more. D for disclosure, which is notice. You must disclose to your clients any information, that knowledge that you've come to learn about, that your client would want to know and consider important to know. So, for instance, if I'm a seller's agent and the buyer's agent submits an offer to us and then goes on to tell me that, hey, let me know if the offer is not accepted, we're going to make another offer that's higher. I can't just go to my client now and present the offer that they gave me and said, hey, this is the offer they're presenting. Do you want to accept it? I have to also tell them the other additional information that was shared with me by this agent who was trying to rush the process, I guess. So slow your roll. He tried to rush the process, and I say, well, he told me that if you don't accept this offer, that they're going to make another offer that's higher. So what do you want to do? Are we going to accept this offer here today? What do you think that their answer was? I mean,
Yeah, I had one.
yeah, I mean, it sounds silly, but sometimes agents do this. I've come across it on more than one occasion. Now, that agent actually violated their fiduciary duty to their client by trying to rush the process or to make sure that their client gets the house. By letting me know that, hey, get back to me right away, because we want to be in there. We don't want nobody jumping ahead of us. If this offer is not accepted, well, we'll make a higher offer. Okay. Do you realize what you just said? You just said now that if I submit this offer to the owner and I tell them that if they don't accept it, that you're going to make them a higher. What are you going to do? Now, can I keep my mouth shut, man? No. If I did, I'd be violating my fiduciary duty to my clients by not disclosing to them, by not notifying them about the information that I just learned. Okay, so this is how our fiduciary duties work. Now, keep in mind, though, when you're working as a disclosed dual agent, you must not place one client's interest above another. Transaction brokers do not owe fiduciary duties to customers they're working with. They could say whatever they want, go back and forth trying to get the deals accepted. They only owe fair and honest dealing with their customers. So disclosed dual agents cannot offer the highest level of loyalty, I guess, to their clients when acting as a dual agent, because you can't place one of your clients' interest above the other if you're representing them both. So you can't tell one that the seller is willing to accept a lower price or tell the seller that the buyer is willing to accept more, because you're representing them both. But if you're working only as a seller's agent and you learn about this information, then you have a fiduciary duty to report that back to your clients. Now, does this happen often? Is this likely to happen? Is it good for somebody to work as a dual agent? Yeah, that's fine. Because this usually doesn't happen unless another agent violates their fiduciary duties to their own clients. So that is the fiduciary duties. Yeah, fiduciary responsibility. Now, there's another acronym that some other books use for explaining fiduciary duties, and it is old car. Instead of cold, it is old car. So Here's another acronym for that. Old car. It's the same fiduciary duties, but they spell it out a little bit longer. Obedience. You must obey your client's lawful instructions. Loyalty. You must always act on your client's best interest, even if it means foregoing your own. Disclosure. You must disclose all relevant information to your client. Confidentiality. You must keep your client's confidential information private. Accountability. You must be accountable for all the funds and property entrusted to you by your client, from open house to money that's given. Reasonable care and diligence. You must use reasonable care and diligence in performing your duties. So, this, once again, disclosed dual agents must not place one client's interest above another. Transaction brokers do not owe fiduciary duties. These fiduciary duties we're learning about right now to those that they work with. They only owe fair and honest dealing. So this is just, let's see, alternative acronym for remembering two very duty. And that is old car. Oh, yeah, old car. There you go. So you guys can do this highlight in the book here for old car or for cold, because this book uses cold as the acronym, not the old car acronym. You could use whichever one is easier for you to remember. I think cold is easy, shorter. Oh.
How do you know if your agent is violating the fiduciary responsibilities? Like, how can you prove that?
You'd have to stumble across it somehow. Maybe another agent said, hey, the seller's willing to accept your offer. Well, is the seller willing to accept a lower offer? And I violate my fiduciary duties and I say, yeah, you know what? As long as you keep it above this amount, we're good. And so then they write up a new offer and they put it exactly at that amount, that minimum amount. So now I present it to the seller and the seller says, they change their mind. They want to counter, they want to put something a little bit higher. And now that agent, you know, they talk to my client maybe and they say, you said that you would accept, your agent said you'd accept this offer, but now you're countering this. Is that your agent doing it or is that you doing it? Because now they think that you as their real estate agent are lying to them about the offer that the seller is willing to accept, and you're the one that's trying to drive it up so that you could get more commission, which a small $10,000 here and there is not going to make much of a dent in my commission. So they go to my client directly and they say this. Well, now your client knows you violated your fiduciary duty to the seller by telling them a lower amount that they would be willing to accept. That's one example of how they could find out. Yeah. Don't worry as much as about how they could find out. Worry about doing the right thing. You know, try to represent your client's best interest at all times, and it's not going to be an issue. So I took this screenshot from the book here for responsibility, your fiduciary duties, cold. Wrote notice there next to disclosure, and I put in that old car acronym right there next to it as well. Okay. So care. Now let's go over each one of those fiduciary duties. Care we'll go over in detail. The other ones will go with me just giving you a rough explanation of them as enough to get by here. So care. What does it mean to care for somebody? To care for your client? If I were to ask you, what does it mean to care for your client? You know, let's just say you got a friend, your neighbor.
I can explain as much as knowledge I have.
Okay, so your neighbor says, hey, you say, I just got my real estate license, you're looking about selling your house. It's like, if you sell through me, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. What does that mean? What does it mean to take care of someone, to care for them?
Means I will gonna list your property. I can provide you the estimation. Not called estimate is the wrong word. The price value. What is the market value currently?
Are no agents supposed to do that? I'm playing devil's advocate here, okay?
So as a
You guys on a
seller agent, of course, the seller wants some kinds of guidance from the agent. That yes, what is the reasonable price I should keep for this? So agent supposed to explain that this is the market value right now. We can compare the.
Okay, you're getting into something, and now you're focusing a little bit too close to it. Sometimes it's good to step back and take the 1,000-mile view of the situation and what it is, instead of zooming in and getting too close to the topic. Okay. People say, "Oh, well, it's to get them the most money they can for their house. It's to help market the property and find how to do this and how to do that." Okay, you're concentrating, you're focusing on the wrong things. I asked, what does it mean to care for your client?
Like help them.
I hope any agent would help them, right? I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here, and go ahead.
To do what's in their best interest, meaning as well, if the sale isn't going to go through and they're going to be broke at the end of the sale, you want to advise them like, hey, are you going to afford to sell your house and not have, because in my mom's case, she was going to sell her house and the agent told her, okay, yes, I could sell your house, no problem. Your house is going to sell within a week. I could get you a buyer. But if you sell the house, are you going to, in the future, be able to
sell your house within a week?
Like, meaning, I'm giving a number out there, but I'm saying, are you he was saying, are you prepared for your financial coverage in the future? Like, can you, after you.
Once again, we're zooming in too close to a situation. You got to back it up a little bit and look at the overall of aspect of what I'm asking here. The answer is really, it's a simple, stupid one. We're really focusing in too much on the details. Sure, you're going to do all those things that all you guys are talking about, but the basic question is, what does it mean to care for somebody, to care for your client? And this is the definition right here. Care is providing the best service possible to your client using the knowledge acquired through your education and experience. Boom. Look, you guys can take classes beyond this one and learn expertise and specializations in different fields within the real estate industry. But if you don't actually use that information that you learn to help your client better, aren't you being careless or negligent to your client's interest? So you got these seminar junkies all the time that love taking classes and learning about new stuff and being experts on this and that. But are they actually applying the information they're learning to help their client or not? If they're not, and they possess this knowledge or experience or both, then they're breaching the duty of care. So courts will hold an agent to a higher standard of care with more education and experience not possessed by the average person. And breaching this duty would be careless or negligent in the representation of your client's best interest. See what I mean by taking the 1,000-mile back view, by stepping back a little bit and looking at the overall versus hyper focusing on, well, you could do this and you could do that and you could do that. You know, well, overall, what are you doing? You're applying your knowledge and your experience
Yep.
to help them out. Okay. Every transaction that you do, you gain more experience. You learn little tips and things here and there that would have made your life easier. Now, should you apply them next time? Yes.
Yes.
It would be negligent not to, right? Be careless not to.
But why does that have to, what does that have to do with care? That has to do with just regular responsibilities. Care would be going more than
This
your
is what,
regular responsibilities.
well, this is your regular responsibilities. It's your fiduciary duty. It's your legal responsibilities that you owe to your client. That's all a part of care.
So it's not like going the extra step, being more than just providing, it's not providing, you know, like when you think of care, it's more than your education and your experience. It's more, you know, let me give you my
Yeah.
my gut. No? Or that's too much.
I'll give you an example. How would you care for me going beyond? I mean, you could like do extra touches and do additional things like, you know, you do open houses for somebody, you know, you go the extra mile advertising it in places where it's not normally advertised. You're going out, reaching out to people, putting in that extra. That's caring for them, right? And that's going the extra mile. But are you required to do all of those things? No. You know, you're required, you know, you have a, if you're having an open house, you put the open house out there, you change the status, you put the status in the MLS, we're having an open house. You may put something in your regular advertisements that you're gonna have an open house on these dates. You know, maybe you put up some signs and balloons, you know, on the day of the open house, you know, but that's the average stuff. That's what people do. And then when people drive by, they see the open house signs and the balloons and they come in, you know. But if you went out of your way, you put it out there with nice ice cold drinks for people, with refreshments available, and you made fancy flyers up with mortgage breakdowns that are available with the costs and everything for them. You even reached out to a mortgage rep to have them on standby there at the open house to help qualify somebody that walks in who may not have a pre-qualification yet. Plus, the added bonus there is you get an additional bit of security there with you if you got somebody else at the open house, right? So there's a little less chance of somebody coming in there and trying to rob you or do something nefarious. You know, these are all like extra steps that you would take. Sure, you could do those things, but are you required to do those things? No, that's a little bit beyond what the normal agent does. But sure, you could do them. Now, so let me see. Let's read up about care. This is the book. This is the screenshot, page 31 and page 32 about care. Well, this one's page 31. Okay. So I'm going to read all of these, just the one under care, because I'm going to break down and give you certain tips out of this. All right. So a real estate agent's expected to deliver a quality of service that a normal person would expect of a reasonably prudent agent. Actions breaching this obligation may be failure to present a written offer before it expires. Let's stop right there, and I got that underlined for a reason. Do offers expire? I know we need to present them within 24 hours. We need to forward or present them within 24 hours, but do they expire if we don't? No. So what are they talking about here? See, I'm not skipping over things that people can easily read through and read over. really quick in this book. Failure to present a written offer before it expires. This is something that you can add into a contract. When you submit an offer, you could put an expiration in there, making it an exploding offer. Okay, it's adding a sense of urgency there for the seller. Hey, you got a live one here. You got a buyer. They're ready. However, they set a clock here with a bomb attached to the offer that this offer is going to explode and go away if you do not accept it within 48 hours, let's just say. You put a time frame that they need to get back to you within a certain time frame, whether they're going to accept it or not. Now, why would an agent do that? Well, to prevent the agents and the owners from holding on to it and slow rolling it to see if any other offers come in so that they can now try to get bidding wars going on. If I'm representing a buyer, I'm doing that. So I'm gonna put a time frame there. I'm gonna say, listen, we got an offer on the table right now. Make your decision. You either take it or leave it. So we're here now. If you're taking it. If you're not going to take it, then we're going to move on to the next house that we have in mind. Okay. This now builds that sense of urgency for that seller. They need to make a decision now. Are we accepting it or are we not? And we need to get it back in writing to them so we can start the attorney review now. And for me, on offers that I make, I usually write in the contract things that most agents don't. I write in the contract when I'm submitting an offer that if the offer is accepted and it goes to attorney review, I want the agent to change the status immediately in the MOS, which they're supposed to do anyway, to under attorney review. But we also want the seller not to consider any other offers that come in if they're going to accept our offer, that they would hold them only as secondary. So they could agree to it or they could not. It's up to them. We're making an offer. We're here. We're serious. We're showing our intentions are serious. All right. Neglecting to mention in the purchase contract any fixtures or personal property desired by one of the parties. Well, in the MLS, in the listing, we usually write in there what's going with the property and what's not. But a fixture is an article that was once considered personal property, but has been attached to the real estate that has been made part of the real estate. Sellers can't take certain things with them. Unless they state in advance that they're planning on it. Like, they may say that they're taking the chandelier when they move. We could ask them to leave it behind as a condition for the purchase because, hey, it makes the entryway, Or we could ask them to include the washer and dryer in the sale. Washer and dryer is considered personal property. Sellers take that with them when they move. But we got a buyer asking if they can leave the washer and dryer behind as part of the deal. Is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything illegal to do that, to ask about that? No. So if you fail to ask about that, are you caring for your client? Where they asked you to do something and then you didn't do it? So we have another fiduciary duty called obedience. You're not a dog, but you must obey your client's lawful instructions. This is one of their lawful instructions. They're asking for you to take care of them. We're asking that when we submit the offer, see if they could throw in the washer and dryer. Minimum, you could ask that. Well, what are you going to do? Say no? Big deal. Well, then we'll still go through with the purchase. All right, neglecting property being managed for another, or improperly handling escrow deposits, or failure to obtain all necessary signatures on a contract. Yes, all of the buyers need to sign. The sellers need to sign. How do you know who all the sellers are? If you're going in for a listing appointment, how do you know who the owners are, who all the sellers are? How do you, what are you gonna do? Just ask them? I would. I just
Really
asked,
get your question.
but I would also print out the tax record to see whose names are listed as the owners in the tax records. And if I see there's several owners there, there's 3 owners listed, but I'm only meeting with 2 people. What's going on? Where's the third guy? Where's Mr. Smith here? He's listed as an owner too. Oh, that was my father. He died. Okay. Did he leave you his property in his will? Or is there another person that he left his interest in this piece of real estate to that we need to have signing a contract? We're going to need to see that will. You see how things can get more complicated? So you would not know that unless you actually asked the questions or you looked at the tax records to see who all the owners are. And then there's a big thing here. I'm going to give you, it's not written here in the book anywhere, but I'm going to give you a little bit of good advice I give all my classes. So if you ever see anybody out there doing this, it's likely because they're my students, because I have never seen real estate agents do what I'm about to tell you that you could do. And you could seem like you're a good agent with having 0 experience, and it costs you nothing to do. Ask for IDs. Look, you could be invited into somebody's home to list their property for sale. And you should still ask them for their IDs. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to share with you an experience I had. I met with a husband and wife selling a house in Springfield, New Jersey. You know, it's Springfield. I could even picture the house. I still got it in my head. You know, I walked in the front door. I met with them. They greeted me at the front door. They started walking me over to the dining room table where we were going to do all the paperwork. They were already going to list their property for sale with me. And the second I walked in the door, I had a little voice talking to me in the back of my head. It kept saying, check their IDs, check their IDs. Now, I'm not one who normally hears voices, okay, but I found that it was quite odd. So when I went to sit down, before I sat down at the table, I just said, "Oh, guys," I said it just like this too, like didn't make a big issue about it. I just said, "Oh, guys, one thing before we get started here, I'm just going to need to see your IDs really quick. Your driver's license, that would be good." So the husband, he reaches in his wallet and I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Okay." And then the wife, she's looking around for her pocketbook. Can't find her pocket. She's like, "You know what? I think I left it in the car." She goes outside, BSing with the husband, and BSing with the husband, and BSing with the husband. And then I ask her, I'm like, "Did she get lost out there or something?" So I get up and I start walking towards the door to see what's going on with her. He's walking with me, but asking me questions, kind of like he's slowing me down a little bit. So we get out there, look, her car's gone. She left. So I was like, "Well, what's going on here?" And he's like, "Well, this is exactly what happened, guys." He was like, "Well, that's not really my wife. It's my girlfriend. I'm getting divorced. And the wife, she's just such a bitch. She doesn't want to sign any paperwork and she doesn't want to." This is exactly the words that were coming out of his mouth, you know? And I was just like dumbfounded. I was like, were you just trying to get your girlfriend to forge your wife's signatures to list a house for sale that your wife has an interest in? You know, you could go to jail for that, right? You know, I was like, listen, I don't know what the issue is with you and your wife. Fine, you're getting divorced, okay? Listen, but you need. I don't know who's at fault here. Like I had a pretty good idea after that stunt. I was like, but you need to be the bigger man, and you need to have a conversation with your wife and sit down with her and say, listen, we're selling this house. We need to sign the paperwork with the realtor. So we need to get together and meet with the realtor. The realtor will even meet you separately if you can't be in the same room together, which is sometimes the case with people getting divorced. Um, and you need to sign the paperwork, if you want to sell this house. But needless to say, I didn't sell that house. I didn't list it. I never got a call back after that. But that was, whew, my whole career flashed before my eyes. I was like, wow, did that just happen? And then I'm like a Scooby-Doo moment, like, seeing all my past transactions, and I'm thinking, how many times in the past could this have possibly have happened? Is this just the one time that it happened and I actually caught it? Is that nagging little voice in the back of my head? Please give me the lottery numbers. The what could have happened if I took that listing with the forged wife's signature on it? Now I put it in the MLS up for sale. We get buyers going and looking. Somebody makes an offer. The sellers accept it, and the girlfriend signing as the wife. Then it goes to attorney review. So now the buyers are spending money on attorneys, and they're going through attorney review. They're paying for an appraisal. They're doing home inspections, getting title search. Now they're in there for a decent buck to buy this house already. Only to find out later when we get to the closing table, because it's required by law that all the closing agents check IDs, that they see that person isn't even the actual owner. Lawsuits are going to get thrown at everyone. Lawsuits get thrown at the wall just to see what sticks, So I was like, oh my God, this could have happened to me so many times in the past. I never checked IDs before until this nagging voice in my head was telling me to check IDs here. And thank God that I did. It was something. So ever since then, I always ask for IDs. So what are you guys going to do? Check their IDs. Check their IDs. By the way, remember I told you about that open house incident where I had some celebrities that appeared? I had the Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse that appeared to my open house one time in the sign-in sheet anyway. That's what it said. At open houses, check IDs. Has anybody here ever been to an open house? What's the first thing that happens when you go to an open house?
I don't recall signing in ever.
You have to sign in, right? You have to sign in. Okay. Now, most agents like me in the past, I never looked at their signatures. I just thought they signed in, Now, I don't let people sign in. For one, because I can't read half their writing. For most people, their writing is atrocious.
Yeah.
So I will ask them, what is your name? And I will write it.
Okay.
What is your phone number? Are you currently working with a real estate agent? What's your
So
email?
I'll be in touch with you at 7. You'll call me.
What's your email address for feedback?
Okay, bye.
And so I will get their information and I will write it down. And I will say, if you guys can just show me your ID really quick, and I can just copy it off the ID. But can I see your IDs? I don't let people into open houses anymore unless they have an ID. Now, who's going to say I'm being discriminatory? You tell me who doesn't have an ID living in the current world, right? Somebody doesn't have a driver's license, hey, that's fine, but you got some kind of ID. I want to see an ID. I don't got to let you into this open house.
Should I call Cal Senior?
Nope. Hold on. I can hear your phone conversation. Let me mute you. Okay. So I could hear, I always ask people, for their IDs at an open house, and then I sign them in. Now, if you are at an open house and a real estate agent asked you for their ID or they won't let you in, what would your reaction be? I mean, it's not a normal thing. Most agents don't do this. So if I were to say, you come into my open house and they say, I need to see your ID or you're not coming in. Now, I wouldn't say it just like that, but I'd ask for the ID to sign them in first before they can come into the open house. Oh, what would you say? What would your reaction be? Come on, everybody. Tell me.
I'd be like, well, why do you need it? What do you need it for?
Yeah.
Why, you never had an agent ask you for an ID before? At an
I
open
mean,
house?
just for looking at an open house, then like, what do you need it for? Imagine someone asks you for your social and they'll be like, oh, just because you know you're coming in here, I'll be like,
Okay.
I can't come to your house.
I would get things like, do you think I'm illegal?
Wait a second. I'm having a conversation with you now as a student. I'm having a role play with you right now, okay? I'm just going to need to see your ID really quick so I can sign you in. And your answer was, why do you need to see my ID? And my reply was, why, you never had an agent ask you for an ID before at an open house? Your response?
No, never. This is the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
For real? Well,
Yeah.
it's out there to conduct business. It's not my business, but I don't know if other agents conduct their business out there. But if an owner hires me to market their property for sale and to conduct an open house, I have an obligation to look out for my client's best interest and at least keep a record of who's come into this open house. What if something gets stolen? What if something goes missing? I have to have some kind of a log. I can't just go by whatever scribbled name that is illegible that someone wrote down. I need to see your ID and I write down who came into the open house. I'm just looking out for my clients. Really? You never had an agent ask for an ID before? Wow. Well, I don't know how other agents conduct their business, but I look out for my client's best interest. And likewise, are you right now? Because if you're not, I have to provide that same level of service working with you as a buyer's agent too. You guys see what I just did right there?
Promoted your
I was offering something of value that other agents are not doing. Did I give a good enough reason for why I wanted to get the ID? So you can usually diffuse the situation and people, a light bulb will pop up in their head. They'll be like, oh yeah, other agents never ask for IDs. And you brought up a good reason about where something does go missing from the house. Yeah, why don't agents ask for IDs? So I'm differentiating myself already from other agents that are there. I could be a brand new agent doing this, and I'm already differentiating myself from other agents who've been in the business for years who aren't doing the simplest of things to look out for their client's best interest. But
So, yeah, I had a question. Just wanted to confirm. It's a good thing. That means, if we hold a open house or if we get a new customer, a client, whether we are from a seller's agent or a buyer's agent, that we first, just kindly ask them for their IDs, like
Correct.
even in an open house.
Yes.
That way, there are two aspects, like we get the correct name as well as we can be sure if that's the person who's actually, it's the authenticity of that thing is more clarified.
Yeah. So, I actually hope that somebody gives me a little pushback on there. So this way I can engage in that conversation and show them that I am different from other agents. And this is, so I asked them, I'm like, before you go in, I'm going to need to sign you in and I'm going to need to see your ID really quick, please. Some people may take offense to that. They're going to be like, wait a minute, nobody ever asked for ID at open house. Why you need ID? I've had students in class that said that their reaction would have been just like that. Why do you need to see my ID? Agents don't ask for IDs at open house. You don't need an ID to go to open house. I'm like, well, I don't know how other agents conduct their business. Really? You never had an agent ask for your ID at an open house? That's crazy. I don't know how other agents are conducting their business out there, but when an owner hires me to market their property and do an open house, I got to look out for their best interest. I got to keep at minimum, I got to keep a log of who's come into this open house. What if something gets stolen or goes missing? We got to keep a log of who came in. We can't just have people just scribble a random name here. I got to know who actually was here. Then we got to keep a log of this. So really, you never had an agent ask for your ID at an open house? Wow, that blows my mind. Are you working with an agent right now? If you're not, I can represent you and provide the same level of service to you and look out for your best interest when shopping for a home. See, what I'm doing is I'm differentiating myself from, that is very hard to do, by the way. Try to find a way to differentiate yourself from other agents, especially since there's like 80,000 agents in New Jersey. You're going to need to find a way to differentiate yourself. And I just gave you guys an awesome way to do it. Just ask for an ID. You know, it's the simplest of thing. Now, am I scamming somebody? Am I trying to get one over on somebody? No. Everything you're saying is legit. The reason behind it is legit. Asking for that ID is legit. And I am looking out for my client's best interest when doing that. So I'm not lying. I'm not, it's not a gimmick, but I do turn on a little bit of the overacting a little bit to be like, really? Maybe the agent ever asked you for your ID? Wow. Well, I don't know how other agents out there are conducting their business, but when you hire me, I'm self-promotion, a little self-promotion right there. Lift yourself up on that pedestal so they can see that there's value in working with you.
Yeah, you become a little distinct from the others.
Exactly.
And also, if they just hoax it and they give a wrong name or they just play around, sometimes people just enter the open house just by the way.
That's another question I usually ask classes. I say, if you've ever been to an open house, how many people wrote down their real first and last name? How many people wrote down their real phone number or email address? If I got your ID and I'm writing down your name and stuff, and then I ask you for your phone number, usually it's harder for people to lie on the spot. Like they're stumbling, like if they want to change up the phone number a little bit or something. Most people aren't so natural liars that it just flows. They have to stall a bit, So if they do stall a bit, I'll say, listen, I'm not going to be harassing anybody. I just may call you for looking for feedback of what you thought about the open house so that I could tell the seller. But then again, if you're not working with a real estate agent, I'd love to work with you. Oh, by the way, if you buy a house through me, I give buyer rebates too. So I could split my commission with you up to 25% of my commission. I will give back to the buyer as a rebate. You see how I built this all into one big thing, and now I'm trying to turn those looky-loos into buyers that will actually want to work with me.
Yeah, I had a question here. Can we always split the commission? Like it's up to us, or we have to take permission from
your broker first.
Oh, okay.
They allow rebates.
Okay, because this will be a little feather in the cap, like, maybe they get more,
Well, this is what I do. This is what I offer 25% because 25% is like a referral fee that I would get. So I offer up to 25%, depending on the value of the home, because some of the lower price ones, it may not be worth it to be splitting up a commission, which you still need to split with your brokers. And now you're offering 25% off the top to somebody. And in the meantime, the commission is like next to nothing because it's really low price house to begin with, So I tell them that if the commission is over a certain dollar amount, I will split up to 25% of my commission. That's the way I have it written in my agreements.
So what should be like, according to you, the lower amount, like less than?
That's up to you. What you're willing, whatever you don't even have to put a condition like that. You could say, hey, doesn't matter the price range or the commission. I'm giving you 25% of my commission, or the commission before I split it with my broker. Yeah.
So it's part of my personal commission, not the commission that goes to the broker.
That's total commission. So you, broker, are contributing to that rebate. Because the commission is a direct reduction from the commission due to the agency at the closing in the form of a credit or check. So it's not just coming out of your pocket, it's the overall commission before the split with the broker. Anyway, you don't have
Oh,
to do.
it can't be a personal amount, like off my chunk of salary. It's got to go through the agency. No,
No, no, no, no, absolutely not. I'll show you some.
that's like a bribe. That's like a bribe almost.
It could be, it could be conceived that way, yes. So I'll show you, we'll get to it when we'll start talking about rebates in this chapter. And I'll show you an example of an agent who got fined for that. And they gave a rebate directly, they paid it directly to the buyer. And somebody reported it. And the agent got caught and they got a huge fine. Okay, because what are you doing by doing that? You know, what's going on? Is there something? You know, there's certain rules on how rebates have to be done. You know, you have to have it in writing. You got to have certain disclosures. And why are you giving the rebate out of your money and not overall splitting that rebate with the broker paying part of it too? You know, something's fishy there. Yeah, so. They get a huge fine in this one instance, which I'm going to show you. Okay,
So mostly the rebate is combined from the broker's
it's off the total commission. Yes,
total commission. Then that is a more honest kind of a rebate.
yes.
Genuine.
Well, that's the only way that it can be paid.
Okay, that is the way. Like a proper, then a contract is also made that
It's
it's
the only way it can legally be paid.
okay, but
It's
not from our personal commission that we get.
No, it's a direct reduction from the commissions due to the agency paid in the form of a credit or check at closing by the closing agent.
Oh,
We're not handing anybody a check. The closing agent is, but we're letting our buyers know that's coming out of our commission. You know, this is money we're giving you back. All right. Now, okay, so the duty of care requires the seller's agent to, among other things, be knowledgeable about all aspects of a property. How do you do that? Well, you visit the property that you get a listing for, first of all. You walk around and you take inventory of the features. If you see a water sitting on the floor or a huge crack in the wall, or if you walk from one end of the room to the other and you're going downhill, is that an indication there may be a problem? Yeah. So just visiting the house and going to the house, but also this. You see this on the left side of the screen, a seller's property condition disclosure report. This is a document that we need to give to owners. It was always optional. I think it's mandatory now. The seller's property condition disclosure report needs to be given to the owner and filled out only by the owner. We cannot help them fill it out because we don't know nothing about their house. It's their house. So they'll tell you if there's, in this report, they ask you questions if there's any problems, if there's any improvements that were done, and just some basic information about the property. That's not necessarily an issue or a problem. Here, let me open the seller's property condition disclosure report, but I'm going to open it from my computer. When I do it on from this link, it shows a minimized version in the web browser window. So I don't want that. I want a full screen so that you guys can see it better. So just hang tight. Give me 1 second here. I need to get it from my desktop and I need to minimize the screen to get to my desktop. So give me 1 second right here. And by the way, while we wait for me to pull that up, I'm going to throw out an after lunch attendance poll. Boom. Closures. New. There we go. Wait, is this the same one? Want to make sure I'm showing you the latest one. Yes, I am. Good. Okay. So I found it, and let me share it with you. Here, this is the seller's property condition disclosure statement. I mean, we could fill out the property address and the seller's names, but it says the purpose of this disclosure statement is to disclose to the best of the seller's knowledge the condition of the property as of the date set forth below. The sellers are aware that they're under an obligation to disclose any material defects in the property, even if not addressed in this printed form. The seller alone is the source of all information contained in this form. In other words, the agent didn't help them fill it out. All prospective buyers on the property are cautioned to carefully inspect the property and carefully inspect the surrounding area for any off-site conditions that could adversely affect the property. Moreover, this disclosure statement is not intended to substitute the prospective buyers hiring a qualified experts to inspect the property. If your property consists of multiple units, systems, or features, please provide a complete answer of all such units, systems, or features in the questions phrased in the singular, such as a duplex has multiple furnaces, water heaters, or fireplaces. Okay, so now we give this to the owner to fill out on their own. I usually give them this to fill out while I'm filling out the listing paperwork and other listing forms, so that they're not hovering over my head while I'm filling everything out. It's kind of like giving a kid crayons. It keeps them busy for a while. But either way, look at the answer options for the questions. The questions about occupancy. The answer options are yes, no, or unknown. Do you know the age of the house? If you do, you write it down. Does the seller currently occupy the property? You should know that, yes or no. There's no unknown on that one option. So you can see there's yes, no, unknown options. There's questions about the occupancy, questions about the roof, attics, basements, and crawl spaces. You guys are seeing this, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Destroying insects, dry rot, and other pests.
So we are always supposed to get this, give this to the seller.
The owner fills this out anytime we get a listing, correct? So for structural issues, any additions or remodels to the house, plumbing, water and sewage, questions about heating and air conditioning systems, wood burning stoves or fireplaces, electrical systems, questions about the land, such as soil, drainage, and boundaries, questions about environmental hazards, questions about deed restrictions and special designations, homeowner associations, condominiums, and cooperatives. We have there's some miscellaneous questions added here. Questions about radon gas. Anybody here know what radon gas is? Anybody here ever hear of radon?
Yes. Yes.
It's an invisible, odorless, tasteless gas that'll kill you. It causes cancer. This is the only one that I advise them to answer. I have them always answer no on this very first one, because the very first question is asking if they're giving their agent permission to disclose any knowledge or reports they have about radon in the home. And when's the last time the owner ever took got any knowledge or reports about radon in a home? It's probably when they bought the house. They had a radon test, and they probably didn't do it since then. So I'm going to always advise buyers, for your protection, get a home inspection. Okay, don't rely on old reports that a seller has, because may have had a radon test done years ago when they bought the house, and it showed that there was no radon. However, radon comes from decomposing radioactive wood deep within the earth, within the soil itself. and it creeps up through the soil. It permeates through cracks in the foundation, through sump pumps, through open windows, and through just porous concrete floors. And it enters the house, and it does cause cancer. So, for your protection, get a home inspection. Look, even if the agent is not given permission to disclose any information that they have, once a buyer makes an offer on a property, now we have to disclose that information. Okay, so there's also questions about major appliances and other items that may be included or excluded from the sale, and other questions about them. There's questions about solar panel systems. Lots of them.
Won't the client get irritated by answering about 500 questions on paper?
It don't matter. You're required to by law when you're selling a house. You know that if you do not disclose this information, or you lie about it, or if you don't disclose it, or you lie about it, or you purposefully omit information about the defects in your home or improvements that may have not been done with permits or done properly, whatever. If a buyer sues you, courts can hold you liable for treble. That means triple the actual cost of damages. Triple.
So mandatory that they must fill every section of it.
So yeah, when I have a owner fill this out, I'm saying, listen, I don't just stick forms in front of another way to try to seem like a better agent, or to be a better agent. Let me rephrase that. Another way to be a better agent is you got to educate your clients. That's your job. You educate your clients, so I tell people, by filling out this form, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm having you fill out this form because you're obligated under law not to fill out this particular form. It could be one similar to it. But this one is put together for their convenience that has questions on a lot of issues. You're required to disclose certain information. And you have to be honest and don't lie. If there's an issue you're aware about, disclose it. The potential buyer will never know. Our job is not to get one over on a buyer. It's to let them buy your house and walk into it fully knowing what they're getting into. Okay. If you lie and your information is misleading, and they sue you, the courts could award them triple the actual cost of the damages. But by having you filling out this form and answering these questions honestly, I am helping you limit the liability in the event that there is a lawsuit. There's nothing that could prevent somebody from suing you in the future if that were to happen. But at least I could help you limit the liability in the event of a lawsuit to actual damages, not triple the cost of them. And that's what I'm trying to do here for you. So by having you fill this form out, fill it out as completely as you can and be honest. Don't lie on anything. If there's a problem, put it down. This will help limit your liability in the event that there ever is a lawsuit.
So
Okay.
we have to sit with them next to us and then fill it physically.
Sometimes I send this to them, or I give it to them in advance, and then I come back to pick it up later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they have their time to.
Fill it out in your free time, whatever. You don't got to sit there in front of me the whole time and doing this, but they can. You're going to be there for a while filling out paperwork anyway. They might as well be filling this out, and if they got a question, they could ask you. So there's questions also about water intrusion. These are new questions. This particularly is new. That was added with the new legislation here, with all those new types of agency and everything. We also need to add this in here, because apparently politicians are now experts on climate change, and they know when exactly and by how much sea levels are going to be rising, even though the creator of the Science Channel, the Weather Channel, he's like, that's all nonsense. He's like, most of these science is not consensus of scientists. It is questioning things. That is what science is. There is no definitive proof. These people can't even tell you how much carbon monoxide is in the air or carbon dioxide is in the air. It's like, what kind of scientist doesn't even know that? But anyway, we passed legislation. We have politicians pass legislation in New Jersey, and apparently everything is caused by climate change. Yeah, climate's been changing since the days of the dinosaur. Proving that man is causing the changing of the weathers and stuff, good luck. It has not been proven. It's just a bunch of people coming to a consensus saying that's what's happening. Really. They're also saying that the polar bears are dying off and the polar ice caps are melting. You guys are familiar with what we saw in the news this year about the polar ice caps? Something like 100 tons of additional ice was added to the poles in the Arctic. So I thought they kept telling us it's melting away because of climate change, but yet over 100 million tons of ice has been added. How did that happen? Okay. Anyway, I don't want to argue about climate change here, but when politics starts ruling on things like science, like your whole COVID thing and this and vaccines and floods and, anyway, the politicians now say, and they passed legislation here in New Jersey that says the coastal and inland areas may experience significant flooding now and in the near future, including in places that were not previously known to flood. Maybe development or overdevelopment can have a cause with that too. For example, by 2050, it's likely that the sea level will rise or meet or exceed 2.1 feet. Wow, that's very specific. Above the 2000 levels, placing over 40,000 New Jersey residents, New Jersey properties at risk and permanent coastal flooding. Then why are all these rich people still buying properties at the beach? In addition, precipitation intensity in New Jersey is increasing at levels significantly above historic levels. It is not. It most certainly is not. You can look at historic rainfalls, and it is not. Placing inland properties at greater risk of flash flooding. These and other coastal and inland floods risks are expected to increase within the life of the typical mortgage originated after 2020. So to learn more about the impacts, we have to give these information about the flooding according to climate change and all that stuff. And we have to have the owners talk about if the property is in a designated flood zone and they're required to carry flood insurance or not. Whether it's if the property's in a 100-year flood zone, it has to have flood insurance. If it's in a 500-year flood zone, it does not. It's a moderate risk. And so what does that mean? A 100-year flood zone or a 500-year flood zone? If a property is in a 100-year flood zone, that means it's going to flood at least once every 100 years. But it could flood every year. A 500-year flood zone is the same thing. It's going to flood at least once every 500 years, possibly because it's at a higher elevation or it's at a further inland or what have you. It's not close to tributaries and rivers and runoffs. So they're going to need to fill out all this information now about floods and if the property's ever flooded in the past, if they're required to have flood insurance on their mortgage and yada, yada, yada. And then an acknowledgement by the seller. The seller needs to sign off here or write in any additional information that they may have. If the seller is dead, then the executor, administrator, or trustee would sign and date here. And then the buyer would acknowledge receiving all this information and sign and date here. And both of the real estate agents in the transaction would sign and date here. So
So, yeah,
how
it is an important document. Like that way, everyone has to sign.
they have to now. Yeah, now you don't need to use this particular one, but the law does say that they got to have like the climate change flooding notes in there now. I think that's like the only mandatory thing it has to have in it. And you could come up with your own custom seller property disclosure form like this, but there's certain mandated things by the law that it has to have in there, like the climate change and flooding risk stuff.
And the radon gas thing.
And well, radon gas we need to disclose if the owner is aware of or has any reports pertaining to them. Okay, if they, if
I don't think so. Like in general, when person is living, they are really so much into it. So then we, as if we are like the buyer's agent, then we have to get it done from the
It's
inspection.
it's required by law for that to be on a property disclosure is my point. If you have your own custom one. This one was created by New Jersey Realtors, so they have for convenience. Okay. But if you go to some agencies, they have their own custom ones, Weikert's, Remax, whatever. They may have their own custom ones that they have their agents using. But there's certain things that they have to have in them. It's like the standard contracts that we use provided by New Jersey Realtors that we get access to as being members. Okay. Each real estate agency can have their own custom sales contracts or lease contracts, but there's certain things that the law requires have to be in those contracts. Okay. And it's just a matter of that as the point that I was trying to get across there. All right, so let me put that back at full screen again, the slideshow.
It looks like fiduciary responsibility is very sensitive responsibility. Care took too much time. Now we have obedience, accountability, loyalty.
Well, I told you, as we get through all the other ones, I could summarize them a lot easier. Care is a
Of laws, like a
big one.
attorney or something like we are preparing for law or something like. There's a lot of things to take care of.
Well, you understand these are important things, Now, how do we address it? Well, we just any knowledge, anything I'm teaching you here in this class, you're learning things that the normal person every day has knowledge about. Every day you're learning additional things.
Yes.
Now you're going to possess knowledge that the general public doesn't have. So courts will hold you to a higher standard of care. But courts will hold your broker to a even higher degree of care because they have more experience and a higher type of license. And, it's all relative depending on your experience, your knowledge, any additional classes that you take. But in basics, it's just a matter, this stuff, there's nothing really too complicated about what I'm explaining to you. Forget about trying to memorize all the little details of this right now. I'm just trying to explain to you how do you take care of your clients. And I'm giving you some tips here about offers expiring or asking for IDs. That stuff's not on your exam, but it's really important to know to be a good agent. Giving you tips like you need to educate your clients. So you should know this stuff so you can educate your clients on it. Because when you educate your clients, instead of just sticking forms in their face to sign all the time, I can't tell you how many people that I ask them, do you remember the agent you bought the home from? Did you like them? Were you happy with them? Okay, well, how come you're not using them? You know what? I forgot their name, or I don't even know if they're with that company anymore, or sometimes if somebody just bought a house, and they come and take this class, and we go over some of these disclosures or forms, they're like, I don't remember my agent giving me that. They're like, what? So I say, what? The agent didn't explain it to you? No. They just stuck a bunch of forms in my face, and I signed a bunch of documents, and I'm like, yeah, that's what usually happens. So a way, so because that usually happens, it's even more evidence to you guys that you can come out of the gate being much better agents than those that have a lot of experience, because those agents may already be tired and they've done this a billion times already. So they're like, I'm not going to sit there explaining all this again. Yeah, but if you take that time with your clients to explain, yes, by filling out this form, I'm helping limit your liability in the event of a lawsuit. Nothing can prevent you from getting sued, but fill out this form truthfully and honestly. Don't lie on it, because if you do and it's proven later on, courts will award triple damages. But if you're truthful, honest, and you just disclose everything, if the buyer buys, hey, it's on them now. And, if they do sue ever, the most that they're going to get out of you is the actual damages, nothing more. So just be truthful and honest. So I explain to people what it is. Did it take a lot of time for me to just say that? It shouldn't take you a lot of time to explain. You don't want to sit there reading it word for word to them. All right. Now, so the duty of care requires seller's agent to, among other things, be knowledgeable about all aspects of the property. We learned about that by asking questions, going to the property, and having the seller fill out a seller's property condition disclosure report. And to arrive at a reasonable listing price. And how do you come up with a reasonable listing price? Whatever price the owner tells you how much they want to get? How do you do that? You guys already should know. How do we as real
I
estate?
forgot what the term was, maybe CMA or something.
CMA. We do a comparative market analysis, a CMA,
Yeah.
to help our clients, whether they're a seller or they're a buyer, come up with a reasonable price for the property.
But how do they actually do that? Because you said that a lot of it has to do with the interiors. They're not going into random properties.
Exterior and interior as well. So basically, when we're trying to value a property, we're pulling up what we call comps or comparables. These are similar properties, similar architectural styles, sizes. They're basically similar properties in the area that have recently sold. Similar in age, style, location, amenity, condition, whatnot. And if, most properties are not exactly the same, so there's going to be some differences in them. So part of doing the CMA is we need to know how to make adjustments for the differences, and then apply that to how it would make an effect in the change of the price for the properties that we know already sold and how much they already sold for recently. So we make adjustments to them to try to pretend that if those properties that sold were exactly like the one that we're trying to determine the value for, and making these adjustments and applying values to those adjustments, we could actually now get a clearer picture of a price range. And that's exactly what an appraiser does too. Okay. Now, how much to apply to a different price range for different things? We're going to get into that in chapter 16. Okay. We'll go.
So we learn there how we do a CMA, like as a sales agent.
Well, I'm going to show you the basics of it, but we're not going to get into the nitty gritty details. I'll show you some information on how you could get the pricing of things. And I'm going to really recommend that you take that class from Ottawa, or have your, it's $100, or have your brokers give you that training. And your broker's probably not going to sit down there giving you that kind of training. They're probably going to say, well, this thing, then come to me, and then and then you're going to find out whether if they're any good at it or not. And it's kind of off-putting, because it's like a big question mark. I don't really know how to do the pricing yet, and I'm going out there, and it's kind of nerve-wracking when you do this, so I would suggest taking a class. Just take the class from the group of appraisers. They'll probably teach you better than your broker will, and they give you a price adjustment guide that shows you how to make adjustments for differences in size, style, location, the different amenities, the location, age of the house, and age differences of houses and stuff, whether they have solar panels or in-ground swimming pools or hot tubs and jacuzzis or, heated floors or a bidet or, things of that nature. Okay, anyway. Discover and investigate material facts. What is a material fact? Material information is any information usually about the physical condition of a property. It's not necessarily something negative. It could be like the number of bedrooms or bathrooms. Is there a garage? How many car garage? Is it attached or detached? What kind of heating system is used on a house? What kind of heating fuel is used? These are just basic information about the physical of the house. And it's not something negative. It's just information. That's what we call material information or material facts. These assist the owner with negotiating an offer that meets the seller's needs and advise the seller on ways to effect the sale. Examples of a breach of duty of care would include failure to inform the seller how the property condition affects their value, or failure to effectively navigate a transaction through to closing. As a buyer's agent, you're expected to inform a client of whatever problems can be discovered through a reasonable investigation of the property. Walking through the house, having a seller fill out the property condition disclosure, and eventually getting a home inspection by a licensed New Jersey home inspector. Advising on probable market value, advise on financing options, help negotiate the lowest possible purchase price, but not at the detriment of them getting the home. I see sometimes agents, they focus on this, well, I'm supposed to help them get the lowest price. Yeah, but not at the detriment of them getting the home. You could maybe get as low as you can. All right. Don't try to always push for lower, when you could get it lower, but not super duper lower, There's a lot of factors that may play a role into that. And monitor the progress of the purchase until the transfer of the title. A breach of duty of care might include failure to advise the buyer to closely consider issues that may be found on the seller's property condition disclosure, improperly handling escrow deposits, or failing to obtain all necessary signatures on a contract. Well, even though the example I gave you was with a listing contract, they're talking about buyers here. Sometimes you get buyers that they're like, you know what? We're gonna put my wife's name on the contract because my credit's all banged up. So we're just gonna go with her name on there to buy the house. Okay, but you aware that if you're married, you can't just get a loan to buy the house that you're going to be living in here. That the lender is going to want your information too. Why is that? You may be thinking, well, can't I just buy it separately because I'm the one with good credit? Okay, well, let me ask you a question. Do you support your spouse? Can their bad habits negatively affect you? Can their poor financial status affect you? If they're getting hounded with bills and bill collectors, are you going to want to step in maybe and help them out a little bit? Could that actually harm you a little bit when it comes to being able to afford houses because of that? So this is why banks think that way. They analyze risk. Okay. So the courts set different standards of care for brokers and salespeople, as you could tell. With the more education and the more experience that one has, courts will hold you to a higher standard or a higher degree of care. All right. For example, they give you this example. I'll highlight this because this is often an example they give you on state exam. They give you a question based on an example similar to this. A rookie is a brand new agent. A rookie residential agent confronted with the opportunity to list a shopping center or a shopping plaza should probably approach an experienced commercial broker with a request that they work together to list and sell the property instead of trying to do it themselves. Real estate is not a business where you try to fake it until you make it. You're going to end up getting sued. Otherwise, the duty of observing an appropriate standard of care may be breached by an inexperienced agent who's not familiar about the process and how it even works. Now, my first gut reaction would not be to go to a side agency commercial broker. What I would do is I would go to my broker and say, hey, broker, do you or any other agent working in a company have experience in selling shopping plazas? If so, then you partner with them on the transaction. You can learn from them this time. Sure, you'll be splitting the commission with them, but you know what? You're also gaining the knowledge of what they're doing step by step. And then next time you could do it on your own because now you have that knowledge. Now, if nobody in the office has that knowledge, and nobody in your office ever sold a shopping plaza, then reach out to a commercial firm. And you essentially would basically become a sub-agent of the agent. You come into this agreement that, listen, I'm going to give you this referral. And companies, me and you are going to represent the seller in selling the shopping plaza. But I don't know the first thing about selling a shopping plaza. I'm a new agent. Are you willing to take on this referral of a shopping plaza for sale and agree to guide me through how you go do it and what the process is? So this way, I still earn some commission. I give you a referral. I learn in the process. If not, I'll find another commercial agent that'll help me do that. All right. So you want to leave? Yeah. And most likely they're going to take it because most shopping centers are in the millions of dollars. So there you go.
But would they try, like, like, you know, let's say someone finds out, hey, you have that plaza, would they try to get their hands on it and just dismiss you from it?
When giving referrals, don't give that information until you get it in writing.
So you're not telling them where the shopping plaza is or any information about it. You're just bringing up the, you know, concept of it.
Heck no. And for the obvious reason that you brought up.
Right.
You know, this is why everything you do, you get in writing. You send a referral, a business referral out, you get it in writing. Like I send a referral out to an agent when I got a client that's moving to a different place, and I give the profile of the client. Maybe I'll even give them the name, but I'm not giving them the phone number or email address or contact information. I'll just say, well, this is where they're looking, and this is the price range that they're looking in, and you know, this is the basic outline of my client that I'm going to refer to you that's looking to buy a home or sell a home. Are you interested in taking this lead in exchange for 25% or 35% or whatever your referral fee that you're going to ask is? And if they say yes, I'll be like, great, I'll send over the referral agreement, sign it, get it back to me, and then I'll fill in the client's information. And then I send it back to them now filled in with the client's contact info. Otherwise, you know, you're risking giving it away and them just taking it. Yeah, you know, being trusting of people. It's hard sometimes in the business world, especially too. I've had situations like this where I normally I'd give the information, I'd talk to the person, I'd send the referral, and then get, you know, them to sign it and get it back to me later. And yeah, no big deal. But I got screwed by a couple of people before where they took the referral, they reached out and contacted them directly, and they were like, no, they actually reached out to my office once previously, we've seen our phone records, so no, we're not going to pay out a referral. And it's like, you know, so no more. Lesson learned.
So wherever we join later, you know, the agency we join, even they will be giving us a proper training and guidelines because in their own way, from their aspect.
I have a job interview sheet there in the shared Google Drive with interview questions, as well as the interview questions that are here at the front of the book. I advise that you look through it. There are questions that I put on there about training. Training is of the utmost importance. Getting training from the brokers that you choose to work for. There are different kinds of training. Some training is free. Some training you got to pay for. Which one is your broker offering? There's mentorship training, but if I'm stuck with a mentor, do I got to work with them if we're working good together, or they're not showing me stuff the way I feel like they should be mentoring me? Like they're like, well, go get this form and go get that form, and when you got a client, then you could talk to me about it. Don't bother me in the meantime. Then they act like you're a burden. You know, is that somebody the type of training that you want to get? You know, these are different types of training that I've come across working in the industry. Ultimately, I ended up training myself because most of the brokerages that I went to and I worked for, they sucked. They sucked. They didn't give me any training whatsoever, and stuff that they tried to call training. Agents that I had in my brokers classes, when they went and they started working for somebody and getting training, they told me some of their nightmare experiences where they gave me some of their nightmare experiences where they were working as you guys are all hearing me still, right? Okay, it may just be Google. They shared with me their nightmare experiences that they had, where the broker assigned them an experienced agent to work with as their mentor, and that person didn't even want to work with anybody, so they treated them like a piece of garbage, and they didn't want to talk to them unless they had a client, and then they would talk to them, and then they didn't really help them that much, but the person ended up figuring out with that one transaction how to do stuff on their own, basically. So now on the next transaction, they wanted to do it on their own. However, this particular brokerage had an agreement that when they assign you a mentor, you must work with them for the first 5 transactions, and you need to split your commission with them. And like, why do I need to split my commission? I know what I'm doing that with them. They're not very helpful anyway. I could figure out this on my own, you know. And they were stuck with them. But yet they had to give up part of their commission and share their commission with this other agent that was supposed to be mentoring them, you know. Or do they have an actual form of classroom training, like every Saturday or something like that in the brokerage? You know, how does it work? So these are questions that you guys should ask. And hold on a second, I'm trying to pull it up. Give me 1 second here. Let me get in that drive. Supplemental materials folder. Interview questions. Here we go. I'm actually working on updating these. I do have more questions in an updated one, but I didn't post it yet. Let me see. Share the link. Share. Here we go. Copy link. There we go. And I'll share that with you in the chat window.
Initially, it is like quite a task to get your foot in and settle in this, like as
Right.
a agent.
It's easy to get hired. Just about every brokerage firm that you step your foot in their front door will hire you. Because when you make, but the thing is, the problem with that is you need to interview them as well. Because if you just go hire the first brokerage that's willing to hire you, which they just about all will, do they really care about how well you do? Some brokerages are just recruiting houses. They're constantly recruiting people. You know, hey, I got a bunch of new agents from Victor's class. Okay, and they didn't really give me training to give a crap about you. Hey, you got a client? You got a closing? Okay, good. We're gonna coach you a little bit, and we'll tell you what to do to help you get through that transaction. And boom, we got a deal. Now they don't teach you how to get more transactions or how to get more clients to work with. Are you gonna are you going to survive forever off of that one deal that you had? And then not training you on how to get more clients and deal with more transactions? You know, it's really important to get the training for them to, you ever hear that saying? What is that saying? I don't remember it exactly. It's, you know, you feed a man, a fish, he eats for a day, you know. You teach him to fish, he'll never starve.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same kind of scenario in this business. If you're going to rely on your broker to spoon feed you a lead, or just work your own lead because you may have a friend or a relative who's interested in selling or buying something, you're going to get that one deal, and then you're going to realize, oh my God, I can't afford to keep paying all these dues and everything every year because I don't know how to get, I'm not getting the business enough to make money to survive, let alone just be paying these dues and bills and errors and emissions insurance and all this, you know, and then you end up failing out of the business. You know, so it is important to get a broker who's going to give you training and teach you how to fish.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's the important part. And listen, you guys can always reach back out to me when you're done with school and you graduated, you're affiliated with a broker, you got your licenses. I know I'm a broker too, so just try not to ask me specifics about your transactions for, you know, I don't want there to be any conflicts or anything like that. But I could give you advice if you ever have issues and anything like that. I don't mind, you know, you ever reaching out to me in the future and me giving you advice or anything. That's fine. Did everybody get that in the chat window? That last link I just sent?
Yeah.
That is for the job interview questions. There's also a bunch of them here at the front of this book, and I'll be updating this one too. I'll hopefully get it done before the end of this course, so you guys will get that latest one. All right, so we're going to leave off right here because it is 4:30. Oh, and just when things are getting juicy. Okay, so yeah, we're going to watch a video first thing tomorrow about two agents specifically working in New Jersey. And I'm going to ask you guys questions if they violated their fiduciary duties to their client or not. This is something here on Inside Edition. So we're going to watch something juicy there. But let me, that's for tomorrow. So let me